Hi everyone, welcome to Casual Watch Talk on a Tuesday. I had a really busy day and I completely forgot to set this up, so that's why it was sort of very last minute, but kindly rallied the troops. So Pete and Todd, thank you for joining me. We'll do another Q&A one, so I've got a couple of things teed up, but definitely keep your questions coming in the comments as well. Bill, thank you for joining us. Always the first in, very much appreciated. Well, should we kick it off with a wristwatch check? Pete, do you wanna go first?
Yep, I'm using my webcam, so this might not work very well. Oh, there you go.
Oh, that does work well.
Yeah.
Dawn Bluth and Zone world timer. Look, the fancy stuff's all on the back. Let's be honest.
Oh, wow.
That's the bit we all enjoy.
Ooh,
yeah. So my little world timer. I'm the only YouTuber in the world who's going to say on its wonderful Artem strap that I had to buy with my own money. It feels like every YouTuber in the world just gets given those things. I actually had to buy mine. That said, I will give the company a little plug. They are the best sailcloth straps I've used from any company, bar none.
Okay.
They're not cheap, but they are very, very good.
Oh, and thankfully I don't have to put the includes pay promotion at the top now.
Exactly. No, it does. I paid a shit tin to be able to promote that.
Yeah, you're promoted. Yeah, Todd, what are you wearing?
So I've been doing a lot of some of my military watches lately as I'm trying to do some more research on them. So this is one that I had. Let's see if this works. Yeah, look at that. Look at that. There it is. It's like if I get my hand right in front of it, I can actually get this thing to focus just right. But this is a Gen 2 Seiko. This is a UK issue, NATO UK issue watch from 1996. And I had this restored by a expert in the UK, oddly enough. And it's on this cool, this guy in the UK, and I forgot who it is, but he makes...
Steve Straps.
Yeah, Steve Straps. Thank you. You remember it. Yeah, Steve Straps. So I have Steve Strap here, which is perfect for this watch. And it's just a fun little...
I'm assuming, is that quartz?
Yes, it is. It's it's a quartz.
I'm just saying if it was issued in the 90s, I was just thinking surely it had to be.
Yeah. And those Stevo straps as well. I've had a couple, and the last one that I had, which John at Tea and Tickers has got now, was made out of a military Land Rover tilt.
You had that one, yeah.
And that yours is made out of like a parachute cloth or something.
Yeah, it's made out of a bag, one of the flight bags they use.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So he gets them, and then he bonds them onto a rubber, doesn't he? He has this like lamination process, lamination process, and they're really cheap for what they are. Affordable for what they are.
Yeah, they really are.
Yeah, he does a really good job. I've had quite a few off him and paid for it for everyone. The Steve Straps one. Okay, so I'm wearing my my Seiko GMT. I'm traveling tomorrow, and it's just like an old travel friend, even though I've had it 6 months. But yes, I do like it. It's pretty useless as your GMT. I've said this before because the numbers are so tiny at the top there. It needs a GMT bezel, but
then it wouldn't be a GMT diver.
That is true, but. This is somebody. I said this in a review, and then somebody was like, "Well, it wouldn't be a GMT diver," and I'm like, "Well, I probably am going to use the GMT bezel more than I would do like the dive bezel."
Yeah, it's just. I must admit, I smile every time you go. I hate this dive watch for being a dive watch.
Yes. Yeah. How dare it? And also,
a dive watch be a dive watch.
Well, as the other thing that I hate that is dive specific is this. I've probably harped on about this a lot, but this ridiculous diver's extension that basically only goes like 10 mil. So once if you want a little bit of extra room on it, you open the diver's extension, and then you can't do anything with it. Then it's all over the place.
Again,
it doesn't like match it out.
Absolutely ridiculous. Making a diver's extension that's actually supposed to be used by divers in wetsuits.
I know.
What were they thinking?
Yeah, outrage. It's ridiculous. Come on, man.
We need to get Seiko cancelled. Okay. Well, yeah, guys, keep your. Oh, here we go. So Patrick is even though he would rather go out for pizza with his family than join us on a live stream. Question: Federico and rising star TikToker keep talking about the PRX movement and how bad it is, and that it gets swapped during service. Do we care? So this is not the Powermatic, is it? In those TSOs?
Yeah, it's
No. Yes, it is. Yes,
Powermatic
I think
80.
it is.
I saw
Okay.
I saw Federico's show just a short time ago.
Yeah, this is actually there was a huge podcaster in Australia who was also a watchmaker in the Omega repair center down here until he got sacked. And it's quite open. He actually is turning up on some other podcasts now because he's in search of a job. One of the things that he got sacked for was saying up front that if you send in an Omega Seamaster to a repair center, there is for a service, there is every possibility they'll just do a movement swap, even on a modern coaxial. And that raised a whole, and that swap is quite possibly going to be a refurbished watch or a refurbished movement that came out of someone else's service. So what they do is watch comes in, they remove the watch, they remove the movement, they take a brand new refurbished movement, put that in, send you the watch, you get it really quick, that movement goes back, it's refurbished, and they're able to keep moving stuff around.
Okay.
And then the question becomes, what's wrong with that?
Yeah, because other industries do that wildly, don't they? It's reconditioned, isn't it?
That's right. But then you get these people who go, oh, but the movement is the soul of the watch. I need to have everything matching from the day I bought it. And people get very funny about that sort of thing. And I think what you see at like the Powermatic range, they're designed so I don't think you can regulate them. Or
I think they're laser regulated from the factory. I don't think you can change that.
Yeah, so I think that can only be regulated like if it goes back to a factory kind of facility.
Right.
So the question becomes, are you okay with that?
Absolutely. Yeah, I have no issues with that.
I am. I don't care.
Yeah, if it's a rare, obviously, if it's a rare watch or something, that's a completely different story. But if it's a modern watch and it needs to go in and they just replace the movement, to me, I'm fine with. I'd much rather have a new movement with completely refurbished with everything than just fixing one problem in a movement that may have some wear on it. Otherwise,
okay. So
there's no serial number on the movement that then correlates to a case back. There's nothing in there that you could even tell that it was done that way. Now dials are a different issue, obviously, and certain things like that. If it's the watch is a certain type of watch, but I think for modern watches, I don't care. I do that with Seiko movements and cheap divers. Fixing a $40 movement necessarily.
It just occurred to me, Breitling's been using, for example, B17 as its kind of base three-hander mod. Its base three-hander module forever. And B17, Breitling have made no bones about the fact might be an SW, might be a Solita, might be an ETA, who knows? But they've been using it for so long that there's every possibility that you could take in a 30-year-old or a 25-year-old Breitling Colt, have a service done for $400 and walk out with an absolutely brand spanking new 2023 ETA or Solita movement with all the improvements that have been made since.
Yeah,
I'll take that every single day of the week.
Yeah, Breitling did do it with the Annie Digis as well, I think the B1s, the early ones, if you sent them in, they would sometimes put the super quartz in.
Right.
Yeah, it's kind of one of the benefits of just having just saying it's a B17. What's the base movement? Don't care. It's a B17, and we will always give you the latest B17.
Yeah, it's interesting. David's saying here, if the watchmaker had swapped the movement on my late father's 1972 date, I would have lost my mind. Well, they wouldn't.
That's different to me.
That's a vintage, isn't it? And they would have to have an equivalent vintage movement to swap it out. And But yeah, but interesting point there for sure.
Right. So I'm sorry. So we were trying to get this to focus before. Let's see. Look at see if I do it like that, Sam. Look at that.
Yeah. Okay.
So this is just in. This is a caliber. This is a true caliber 11 pan Europe. If I can keep my hand from moving so much, and it's keeping some pretty good time so far. I'm just now starting to mess with it. And this is the chronomatic, so it's got that Project 99 movement in it, and it's vintage, it's original. If someone, not that they could do that, but if someone were to replace this movement with something that wasn't original, if I ever, send it in for service, I'm completely with you. I would have a cow, but I mean, that's extremely unlikely.
It's an interesting question, because what if by the time it had got to you, it had already been through 2 or 3 movement changes? I mean, we just said that it's fine for a new movement, but every old watch was new once. So it could have gone through, by the time you got it, it could have already had 2 movement changes.
Yeah,
and in theory, you're right. It could have. Well, let me show you this, though, to your point. So this is what I did with this watch. So going back to, the military guy here, right? So this is nothing sacred about this Seiko other than the dial, because it's UK. Now, if we look on the back, which you can, I realized I have the NATO on. Hold on. I just realized, Steve-O strapped this to NATO. I'll pull it off here. You can see. There we go. I'll see. I had a way of doing this. Like if I do it like this. Hold on. You're still trying to figure out the science here, right? Look at that. Look at that. Yeah. So you can see the markings, the 6645 TAC 99. So the 99 designates it as a NATO issue. And then you can see it's a 96, and there's 6645 just means it's military issue. But the thing is that these movements, these Gen 2 movements, these 17 movements have a lot of plastic parts. So the movement itself is disposable. It's very hard to fix because of the plastic parts. But what's interesting is the military issue ones have there's a main plate, or one of the plates in the watch is unique to the military issue ones. So what my watchmaker did is I found a brand new old stock 17 movement, and he took it apart and put in the correct plate that from this original watch, so that the movement inside is a correct military issued 17 movement. So is that original? No, but it's correct for the watch. So if as long as it's correct for the watch, maybe Pete, you have a point. I don't know. It depends on how much romance I want to put into, like you said, the belief that this 1970 mark Project 99 watch is original. And that's a valid point you bring up.
Yeah, it's a good point. Let's see. So No Fold says, I'm impatiently waiting my SJE 093. Now, this is this Seiko. This is the latest edition of the 62 MAS. I think it was it controversial because of the pricing?
I think so.
It's a Seiko. It's always controversial because
it's a $4,000 watch.
I love this box though. Look at that box; is amazing. They've recreated the box, which that just tickles me. That I love the way they've done that. I would say 3,500, and it's got the 6L37.
6L, okay.
Yeah, and it is pricey. But I think you do need to slow down and stop and remember that 6L and 6R are completely different movements.
Yeah.
So the 6L is, if I've got this right, it's basically a slightly thinned down version of the 8L. So it's the important thing there is the L, not the 6. So it's a little bit thinner. It's a bit truer to normal. It's a bit truer to the original one. And if that's what you want, great, go for it. And it's a gorgeous watch.
It's gorgeous.
Yeah.
And
it is.
And the originals were pretty, actually somewhat fragile. So you could wear this and not worry about it.
Yeah. I was looking at a few of the originals online, and they've really shot up on Chrono. They're 4,500 a piece. So it's not a bad size either, is it? I think it's a 38. Okay, so closer to the original. Yeah, I like it. I love the box. The box,
box is cool.
Yeah, I wonder if they'll, some of these Seikos, you're like, oh, well, they'll probably come down $1,000. But the original reissue 62 MASs, they never came down, did they? The first time they did this, and they were $4,000, weren't they, or something?
I can't remember how many of these they're making. It's not a huge amount. It's about 1,000 or so. So, yeah,
so it's 1,965, so 1965.
Yeah. So it might be worth taking its shot, but I must admit, on some of the places where I'm used to seeing these things get dropped, like Noman's a classic one where you see them at a couple $100. I haven't even seen this be made available.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, or toppers or something like that. It's interesting.
One option would be that you'd basically wait and then pick one up, perhaps off Chrono 24 out of Japan in a few years.
Yeah. I actually, the original, sorry to cut you off, Pete, the original ones, the original reissue ones, I put 63 on here, so, they haven't really come down. So there's an original one, 5,000, and then I did spot one that was is it that one? I'm sure I spotted one of the newer, older ones. Maybe I didn't. Oh, there you go. There it is. That's.
Okay.
So I think that's
pretty much the original price.
Yeah. So cool. Okay. Well, we've got a probing question here that I'll be really upset if somebody on the panel doesn't know the exact answer to this. So prepare yourself. Where do you think Buzz Aldrin's Speedmaster ended up? I think that would very much fit the term Grail Watch. Peter, this is such a good question, isn't it? Because it was getting posted back to the Smithsonian or something, wasn't it? I think, was it he wasn't sending it direct, I don't think. I think he passed it back after the mission, and then somebody in the military is like, I think they all went to the Smithsonian, I think, or perhaps one went back to Omega. But yeah, the story is it got lost in the post on the way. So
yeah, I think maybe some USAF sentencing officer now has a really nice watch. But
isn't it wild? It's never been found. Do you know? I mean, assuming the original, assuming it got liberated, unless Buzz Aldrin himself still has it, which I don't know. I think he would have said something, wouldn't he, by now?
Yeah,
I mean,
he'd
would have
be
said
pretty
something.
Untouchable. The old thing about, if you got the choice between a conspiracy and a cock up, go with the cock up every single time. I'm going to go with, this is actually sitting in a warehouse somewhere. So it arrived. They entered the details into the random, generator that says go put something in this box, and then they wrote the number down wrong, and so it is now lost for all time until someone does a 100% check of, this government warehouse somewhere.
Well, the archives at the Smithsonian. Yeah. It's a wild. They're totally right, though. I mean, that must if Newman's watch got 17 million, the Rolex. I mean, this must be worth the actual Oni Omega the Oni Omega that actually went on the moon. Sorry,
all the moon landings had Omegas.
Yeah. But that was the first ever one, though, wasn't it? Because obviously,
Armstrong's was back in the
Armstrong stayed behind, which arguably is a better story, isn't it? Because they needed it to time the thing.
I'm still with you, Sam. I think that's a better story.
Yeah, but Omega completely excommunicated Neil Armstrong from any mention of the moon landings. It's Buzz Aldrin or nothing. And he was triple wristing the other day. Did you see him on his birthday?
Yes,
I think he had 2 X33s, and then he had the 50th anniversary one as well. Good on him.
He can do that.
Yes, he's earned that for sure.
He's earned that.
Yeah, I mean, that would be a wild auction to follow, wouldn't it? I mean, I guess Omega themselves would they would probably bid. I mean, they'd be gun shy now, wouldn't they?
Yeah, that would be the trouble. I think that would be gun shy, but I think they'd also be very happy to throw the kitchen sink at buying that one.
Yeah,
that would have to go back to the Omega Museum as a real vintage Omega that wasn't fabricated by folks in house. But I'm with Pete though. I bet you it's just if you ever go online, you can see just how extensive the Smithsonian Institution is, especially the parts you don't see. I have my brother-in-law actually does security for parts of the Smithsonian. It's just like something out of National Treasure. I mean, it's just acres, I'll say, underground, and they've got different places where they do restorations and this and that. And I bet you it's sitting on a shelf somewhere that no one's looked at for whatever this has been, right? Like 60 years.
Yeah. David said it's the United States government. Yeah, I was watching. We started watching Seinfeld again, and there's that scene where he's got like the pirate shirt on and he has to wear it. That's in the Smithsonian apparently, and Mad Men Don Draper's outfit from Mad Men's in the Smithsonian. Okay. Oh yeah, thanks, Bill. Remember to hit the thumbs up if you're enjoying it. I've had a bit of a run on the channel recently of reviewing G-Shocks, and I thought I'd get the reaction of this one that was released today. Did you see this, Pete? Did you see this, Todd?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, the jelly ones.
Yeah, but isn't it wild that the dial they've made the dial itself, well, the LCD transparent.
Yeah, it does strike me as it's like there's something peak watches have become jewelry at this point. I think that for a long time, we were able to sort of say they're still functional, they're still tools. Look at the G-Shock. And for me, this kind of like is the last bastion. No, even G-Shock is just a toy now, is just jewelry.
Yeah. This is, I mean, I've had a run of reviewing them, and I had two that I thought were pretty illegible, really. The 30th Frogman, and then the latest 40th anniversary one I didn't think was that legible. But they do look legible when G-Shock take a photo, but G-Shock have actually taken these press images, and you can't flip and see it. And then they've done a wild one that's on the metal. What is it? It's not even letting me go back here. They've done a wild one that's on the metal bracelet. It's on like a sort of a half clear, half metal bracelet. I don't know what they're playing at there. Yeah, half clear, half metal bracelet. Very, very odd.
Very odd.
Yeah. Do they give you both, or
no? It's just half and half. It's half clear, half.
Wow.
Yeah, it's not. It's
almost like something screwed. Speaking of the Buzz Aldrin watch, it's almost like something went wrong in the logistics, and they accidentally got their batching wrong, and someone went, "Oh, screw it, can't be bothered fixing it. We'll just call it a feature."
Yeah, because it's actually got it looks as if it's that even the clear bit is partly you can see the pins and stuff in it. I suppose it's a novelty for sure, isn't it? It's not one I don't think you could wear on the daily.
How much? Oh, $260? Actually, that's not a bad price.
That's not bad for a half metal. Yeah, I just actually picked up the speaking of NASA, picked up the NASA limited edition, or I entered the competition and won it. So I'll be reviewing that on the channel. Which let me just see. I wonder if they've got a picture. They G-Shock are doing this thing, which I suppose I think. Well, do you agree with it? Because G-Shock's obviously gone crazy, hasn't it, with the Hodinky and stuff? But they're doing this one now where you enter the competition, you basically click buy, you put in all of your details, and they just do a random lottery. And if you get pulled, they basically just let the payment go through, and then they ship the watch out to you. I don't think that's a bad idea, really. But what do you guys think? Oh
yeah, I don't mind. I must admit, I'm have G-Shock blindness. I don't care. I don't feel any great attraction to them, so I don't. It's just like someone else's problem. It seems like a decent way of getting rid of G-Shocks. So it's funny when it is interesting in a world where people have been talking about how things like the smartwatch have devastated apparently the exact area that G-Shocks live in. That maybe this is just this is the survival strategy for brands like G-Shock and Casio. It could be that people want them to stick to their toolish roots and want them to be like the classic G-Shock, but that's an Apple Watch now, so maybe this is as good as it gets.
Yeah, you're right. It's got a fairly basic movement in it. I think what I like as well is that at least G-Shock, if you are somebody that likes them, they are, well, these certain ones are affordable if you like this shape. I mean, they've got this wild one that they bought out. I wonder if they've even got it on the website. They bought this here you go, the 40th anniversary Frogman, titanium with this rubber, and it's got a titanium bracelet. This thing is $6,400. It's wild.
Yeah, so I think what you're looking at now is post smartwatch G-Shock. This is post quartz crisis. Rolex, etc., survived by making the Yachtmaster come out in solid gold, and etc. This is G-Shock basically repeating that process.
Yeah, it's an interesting problem space. Pete's right. I mean, I can't comment on a $6,400 G-Shock. I mean, that's just a status move. It's like the VW 12-cylinder Phaeton. There was no point in it. It was a horrible car, and but why do I want to spend that kind of money on a VW? But yeah, I mean, the whole smartwatch. Like, I have one G-Shock Square. I've had it for a long time, and I don't wear it. I used to wear it when it was like banging about in different places, but now, like you, Sam, I have the Garmin GPS watch, and that's kind of taking its place for me. I don't have an Apple Watch; I just don't want one. But the Garmin, was my kind of my running outside and all that stuff. But that's what it's comfortable and it's legible and it marks my steps. So that's my G-Shock now. To Pete's point, but I think this is the same reason why we saw Seiko kind of get out a lot of their stuff out of that Apple Watch price range. So you have Seiko 5s at a very low end still, which is fine. And you've got some of their classic divers, but the prices have been going up because they don't want to compete, because Apple is the largest seller of wristwatches in the world. And you just can't, you're just not going to compete with that.
Yeah, using a radar terminology, the watch companies are all creating like a Doppler notch, where they just say it's something between $350 to $700. There's just too much clutter. We just don't bother. We just don't bother competing in that space.
Yeah,
we'll make. So take Seiko, for example. We'll put all our eggs into like 5KXs that sell for $300 to $500, just around there, and after that we go to 1,000. And that notch in the middle, just not even worth putting watches in.
Right. And the $200 range and that sort of thing is a lot of that's Orient now.
Yeah. And if someone was willing to spend $300 and buy a 5KX and then got tired of it or wanted to go the next step, it's not unreasonable to think, they're probably willing to jump to 1,000. We can probably make that jump.
Yeah, it's a good point, isn't it? Yeah. Okay, next question. So you're in the drive-through at Chick-fil-A. I don't know, Pete. You don't have Chick-fil-A in Australia, do you? It's like a chicken. It just sells chicken burgers and.
I lived in America. I know that. Oh, yes. I know a chicken fella.
And
no, we have an environmental protection agency that stops crap like this coming here.
Oh, Chick-fil-A is wonderful.
Yeah, I tell you what, if you own a Chick-fil-A franchise, I mean, it's like printing money. There's another one called Raising Cane's, which just sells chicken fingers. They're opening one near us. I'm worried about the traffic because they're opening a Raising.
Really?
Anyway, yeah, it's wild over here. Okay, so we're in the drive-through for Chick-fil-A, or insert your favorite fast food. You're the billionth customer. They offer you an engraved, so it's engraved with the Chick-fil-A logo, Panda Daytona, Nautilus, AP Jumbo, Moonshine Gold Speedmaster, and Vacheron Overseas to choose from. Which one is it?
For me, for all of those, I look at this point, you're talking about money at such a level for all of those watches that it doesn't matter what I'm buying. It's getting sold. So the question is solely which would have the greatest resale value.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to be the Nautilus.
Yeah. And you know what? There's a lot. I think there'll be a lot of very wealthy, Chick-fil-A fans out there. Yeah. Yeah.
No, it's just like it would be it's the first Tiffany blue Nautilus thing. It's such a rarity that it would go for serious money. So for me, it would be not. If you actually ask me a more like just a straight up put that artificial not allowed to sell it thing on the back, I'd probably go the Moonshine Gold Speedmaster. That's the best looking watch of that selection.
I'm with you. If I were keeping it, it would, and I'm a speedy guy anyway, unlike Patrick. I would definitely go with I love when he's not on. We can say things about him. The Moonshine Gold Speedmaster for sure would be. I'd love to have one of those. Absolutely.
Yeah. I think I would go with the Nautilus. I think I do genuinely like the look of it. I actually prefer the Aquanaut look, but yeah, I do. I'd probably go with the Nautilus. That's actually a great thought.
That's a very cool question.
Yeah, because the lottery here, is it the Powerball or something? Not the Powerball. The Millions has gone up to 820 million. Wild. So I was thinking I bought my one ticket. They call it the tax on the naive, don't they? Playing the lottery.
Yeah, poor tax and all that stuff.
Yeah. But that one chance, I was like, oh, what?
If you win, this is the deal. Okay, if you win, you get to pick one of those watches, and everybody who does the live stream, you'll commission a custom dial for one of those watches that we'll each get.
Yeah, with my obnoxious logo on it. You can have the obnoxious casual watch reviews logo on it.
Yes.
Yes.
No, with an engraving on the back. I couldn't afford this. Someone had to buy it for me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
I'll take that.
Let's see. Where did I go? While we're waiting for more questions to come in, I've been obsessing about buying a Grand Seiko ever since I've come back from Japan, and I've been using this notepad on Chrono 24, and I quite like it, but I don't know whether is it helping me decide, or is it just do you guys use this? And
absolutely, I live and die by my notepad on Chrono 24. It's the worst thing about it is that one thing it doesn't work very well with is when you want a watch that isn't for sale. So it won't allow you to create kind of like a watch recon. I'm looking for this thing. It has to already be on sale. But yeah, I would say on my list of watches I want to add to the collection, there's probably about 30 watches, and I think about 25 of them are recorded on my notepad.
Yeah. Yeah, because I'm going through a thought experiment because this is the grand Seiko that I passed up an amazing deal when I was in Osaka on this watch. I found it, but by that time I'd way I'd way outlasted my wife's patience for being on holiday and looking in watch shops. They had one for about 1,700, but the cheapest on here is 2,000. But I've never actually bought on chrono from Japan, but Japan always seems like it's got the best deals.
It shouldn't matter though, right?
Yeah, I bought stuff from everywhere.
Yeah,
on Japan on Chrono 24. In fact, Chrono 24, the whole escrow thing makes me feel very comfortable about buying from pretty much anywhere.
Yes.
So I bought stuff from like Lithuania. There are certain that, like some African and South American countries is where I draw the line. But that's about it.
So
depends what you want to get, but yeah.
I like the way they do the. Do you have to click on it to show the? Let me click. Did they do the graph at the bottom? Yeah, I like this as well. This graph feature that they've got to show you how the sales have ebbed and flowed. I think this is always quite interesting.
It is. It's actually one of the things that, quite apart from personal shopping, one of the things I find that graph really interesting for is, for me, it's a good indicator of when clearly dealers are selling either to other dealers or themselves.
Interesting.
Because one of the things it's fascinating, like you could kind of pick a couple of months in advance that there was a problem with Rolex sales, when according to that chart, the average price of, say, they give you the range. You would look at the range of sales of a Batman, and it would say, the lowest price in the range that these are selling for is $21,000, and the highest price is $25,000, and the median is in the middle. And then you would immediately go to the stores and find 20 for sale at $17,000 or $18,000, and you'd watch those, and they don't shift. And yet the graph is telling you that the average price is $6,000 or $7,000 more than that. That's a warning that dealers are selling watches to themselves over the odds, and they're prepared to lose the commission so that they can drive that graph up, and they don't have to tell anyone that their inventory is worth 30% less than they told their lenders.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because it's so tight, the tolerance, isn't it? But it gets a lot wider closer to during this year. The sort of the upper and lower bands there.
Yeah, and if you look at the lower band, even now, I think you could probably do it. If you look at the lower band, and it says, okay, so nothing's really selling for less than 16 grand. If I'm looking at that, 18.
Oh, 18,
you go up and search for that, and then do a ranking by price. I suspect you will find lots of watches listed at significantly less than that for some reason don't seem to sell.
Let's have a look. Okay, so okay. 14, 14, 14, 14. US. Yeah.
So what that tells me is there's a lot of people trading that watch between themselves to pump up that graph.
Interesting.
That is interesting. And there's 1,000 of them on Chrono 24, so we have this big problem with Rolex not making enough watches.
Yeah. I mean, how much? I mean, 14. Aren't they 12 new anyway? Aren't the back? I mean, it's the. I'm with it, back girl with the Jubilee, isn't it now? But aren't they? I think they're actually not far off.
I mean, that means you're getting close to retail.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's have a look at the there we go. Configure. So it's actually we're actually on there now. Let's have a look.
What you're experiencing now is why the Rolex website is the
10,000.
worst website in the world.
Actually, so it is. They're still, yeah. So the 10,000 it had for that one. I actually thought them GMT Masters were a lot more for some reason. I thought they were in the 12s, but saying 10,000. I mean, obviously we've got to pay tax over. I had the old tax on there, but yeah, interesting. Interesting. Let's see if we've got any. Let's see if we've got any other questions coming through. Somebody's saying, "Hi, I have the Tissot PRX Gold one quartz version. What do you guys say about this watch? I like that gold one. I think
I don't remember.
Sunil's got it in our group. It's got the gold.
I don't get along with DLC gold. I just don't like it. I'm assuming it is DLC and it's not actually a gold PRX.
No.
Yeah, it's funny. I'm going to do a video about this soon, but I don't sell watches, but I just sold like 9 because my collection took a kind of veer off. And one of the watches I sold was my Mido GMT. And it was because I found that over time, for whatever reason, I don't know if it's that particular watch or just DLC gold in general, the way it ends up kind of feeling, I just never picked it. I just never wanted to wear it. And it got to the point where I thought, this is never coming back. This watch has like left the building. So, well, metaphorically, and now it has figuratively, actually left the building. It's manifested it. So yeah, I bought a watch. I won't spoil my video, but I bought a watch which made me look at my collection differently. And next thing you know, I've sold 9 watches.
Yeah. It's amazing how that happens, isn't it? I mean, that happens to me all the time, but 5 watches went out this week. Someone gave away, to be honest. I like that. I like that gold PRX. I think that's a good pickup, actually. So let's have a look if we've got another question. So Orange Hand is saying, good Breitling deals on Chrono 24 these days. 765 reissue for 5K new. Crazy. I'm not sure I know what that one is. Let's have a look.
That's the special edition they did a couple of years ago.
Okay.
Yeah, it's kind of all over the place, that one. That watch is selling well under market. I think a lot of it is also, and we were discussing this on our chat offline, Breitling prices vary wildly across the world. So I think when America seems to pay the highest prices for Breitling. So I think when Americans go on Chrono 24 and they see that, some Australian is selling something at 10% off, for them, that could be as 30 or 40% off.
Yeah, you do see a lot of Australian sellers, don't you? Especially on eBay.
Yeah.
So, because this isn't far off that Brad Pitt one, is it, that you liked?
That is the Brad Pitt one, just in steel, not the Brad Pitt one is platinum and has a blue dial. But apart from that, it's the same watch.
Yeah. That's really interesting. But some of the Breitlings have really gone up, because when I went through my Breitling B1 phase, you could easily get those for like $1,500, and they've really shot up now, 2,000. And do you know what else as well? We mentioned on Sunday Social, we were talking about the X33. We were talking about the Natalie Portman film, and John at Tea and Tickers is like obsessed with the X33 now. And I owned the original one, the Gen 1, and I did not like it. But they've really shot up in price, and this is a 25-year-old watch, but there's loads of them on eBay, loads of them on Chrono 24, and you think like supply and demand would have bought the price down, but I can't see one less than, well, there's $1,800. That's a Gen 1 with the original crown. I just cannot fathom that watch being worth that. Even these Skywalkers, you'd be able to get them for like 3,000 or 4,000, and they've shot up. So I'm not sure what's going on there.
I think you're seeing a bit of a seller's strike, where people have said, you know what, I just won't sell. I don't need the cash that fast. and so I just won't sell it. And then you get into the weird space of the buyers also going on strike, saying, "Well, I just won't pay it," and the watches just sit there.
Yeah, because this one, the balloon, the mission, maybe it's a mission to Mars one, which is, you see loads of them for sale. It mustn't have been a big seller because of its, it comes on a flipping NATO and it's like a quirky color scheme. You used to be able to pick them up really cheap, but now really struggling. This regatta one as well wasn't well known, and you used to be able to pick those up for 3,000 or 4,000, and now they're. But this it's wild. It's wild. This, I suppose, as well. This because the astronaut wore it on the Dragon space flight, didn't he? And I think a lot of the astronauts still wear this one. I think there's that nostalgia kind of element to it.
I think they are the X33 is the one they actually issue now. So if you do go into space, you are wearing an X33. So I think there's also, and this is, actually, it's not quite what James was asking about. But it's funny, I recently did a series of videos talking about, my unpopular opinions. And, in the comments, there was people, and some of them were a bit spicy. But a few people were coming back and giving their unpopular opinions, like that they think quartz is cool, and I don't think that's unpopular anymore. I think that's actually pretty mainstream. I think there are a very large number of people who say, quartz is where it's at. I was listening to some podcaster recently who said, this watch came out and I really love it. If only it was quartz, it would be better if it was quartz. And that's coming about. So I think so I think that could be also behind some of why these watches are not the bargain basements they were.
Yeah, I remember the first time I tried one of these on, I was at Sam's house for that Gen 1. And as soon as I put it on a wrist, I was like, no. It felt like to use, not derogatory, but kind of like a cheap quartz feel to it, meaning it was very light. And I like watches that I know that are on my wrist, and I put it on there. I'm like, it really wasn't appealing.
Yeah, I did not warm to it at all. And the thing is, I took a real bath selling it as well. So I think a lot of these must. But I noticed a lot of the Japanese sellers don't do the offer, do they? They don't let you put an offer through. That's actually a good price for that regatta. Anyway, I'll stop looking because I'm going to talk myself into obsessing about them again. I really when I get a Grand Seiko, it'll either be spring drive or it'll be a 9F quartz. I really like the sort of the high precision quartz stuff, and even that Citizen, the Citizen watches are really cool as well.
If I had a dress Grand Seiko, I'm thinking about it. I might prefer a quartz, a 9F quartz. I'm thinking if I had a dress watch from them.
Yeah, when I dipped my toe in, and I've still got it. When I dipped my toe in Grand Seiko and said I want a Grand Seiko, I went quartz. For me, that's kind of like that's them. Although I do love their high beat stuff, but it felt like getting a 9F quartz movement is getting a real Seiko, a real Grand Seiko.
Yeah. So I totally agree. Actually, so Orange Hand saying, how about a Deadpool? Which micro brand goes out of business first? Furlan Mare, Baltic, Studio Undog. I don't know who Furlan Mare is.
I don't know who Furlan Mare is.
Oh, they're the internet. They're the YouTube darling brand, aren't they? Aren't they?
Who are they?
Or am I getting them?
Are they disrupting the industry?
No. Well, in a way, they are. If they're the one I'm thinking about, weren't they the ones that brought out those like Patek knockoffs, but people went nuts for them, and they became super popular? Yeah, those ones.
Okay.
Yeah, people love those.
Well, they're good looking. Looks a little bit like a Kyoto in a way, minus the case, but the dials look a little bit like a Kyoto.
Yeah, their first. It was really weird. I don't understand. well, I kind of do understand, but it requires me to be really cynical. In that they're just another knockoff brand, but they seem to be real darlings. Like everyone, Fratello and Worn and Wound, and everyone just goes nuts for them. But then on the other hand, I saw Nixon turning up being advertised on Worn and Wound the other days, and I found myself thinking, when are we going to go to the Hodinkee shop and find MVMT watches?
Yeah, well, they're owned by Movado now, aren't they? There's people at my work who actually went to university with the guys at Settle Movement. Yeah, it is interesting about the micro brands, isn't it? Because yeah, I don't know. I still review the odd micro brand, and there's less and less interest from the audience. I think honestly only Jody can really review a proper micro brand and get the views on it, just because people want to see his take on it. But I think a lot of the micro brands, yeah. And would we ever know which ones have gone out of business? Do you know? I can't, unless you're constantly checking. I mean, I must have reviewed at least 20 or 30 different micro brands on the channel over the years. So
yeah, I think the microbrand world has stabilized a little, but to your point, a couple of weeks ago, I was doing a search for it was just searching on the internet, looking for articles about how microbrands price their watches. And, there's articles and blog posts that come up. And I found an article from about 2016, 2017 from, one of the big sites that focuses on microbrands. And they had a blog post where they spoke about exactly that. And they got like a whole bunch of the brand owners for the biggest micro brands at the time to come and talk about how they price their watches. And of the 12 brands that were there, 10 no longer exist.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Or if they do, they've shrunk down to a rump, selling like what were probably the remainders from the watches they had years ago.
Because they do a lot of and somebody, Sean also mentioned Studio Underdog. I think Studio Underdog's margins must be quite high enough to sustain the business. I think I would say for the movement and stuff that he's using, and he's a one-man band, so overhead and all of that. I think he's actually probably very shrewd at the way he's gone about that, actually.
I believe he's got significant capital investment from outside now. But I wonder if, I think he's got his biggest challenge in front of him right now. I want to see the second album.
Yeah, right. That's exactly right, Pete. I'm wondering what he can do on his second album, because that's going to be tough. I don't know.
Yeah, all we've seen so far are covers of the original song. So I want to see the second album.
Yeah, see, he's just remixed the same song. And somebody's who was it? I think I missed it. Somebody mentioned Phoebus. Yeah, Sean mentioned Phoebus. I've reviewed quite a few Phoebuses, and they've got their manufacturing is extremely good for a micro brand. Their watches are extremely good. I think that Phoebus actually are probably okay if they're not backed by something else, but their watches are very good. I think they sell them because the quality is top notch on them. So as long as you like that aesthetic, it doesn't. They're not manufactured like a micro brand, I don't think.
Yeah, I've kind of lost. I got rid of all my micro brands. I just don't really have any desire for any of them. Although I'm glad they're there and doing different things and trying to come up with interesting. And you always want, what is going to be the one or two or whatever that actually transition to a real watch company, something that becomes a bespoke watch company of some sort.
Yeah, and that's an interesting. I was thinking about it as you were talking, and I thought, I don't really own any micro brands, but then it occurred to me, some people would say I picked one up like 2 days ago. because I just bought a Mr. Jones watch. But I don't even think of them as a micro brand. So
it's like an independent.
They're
Right.
just an independent.
Like an independent, right? And I have a Detroit Mint watch because I helped Dave a little bit in terms of looking at his designs and stuff. So I'll always keep that. But yeah, I just don't desire to go out and buy one right now.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah. No, I get it.
For me.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, I think I've got one micro brand coming in that's just because I like the guy who's chatting to me on emails. I'm like, okay, I'll review it. But I've been reviewing some Spinnakers and some other things just to keep content up on the channel. But yeah, I don't. Most of them I turned down now because there was a time when all I did was micro brands. And actually, during COVID, I thought I was being a bit of a crusader and like helping them promote the stuff. But I think the watch community as a whole has lost interest in them, so I try and weave in a lot more like the G-Shocks and the Citizens and stuff like that. Yeah, so
yeah, I've sort of sensed the same. In fact, it's interesting. That's kind of one of the changes that's going on. Very much, I think the heat in micro brands has come out, and you don't. I'm the same as you. If I look back at views where I talk about micro brands, they used to be really strong, really strong videos. Now they don't get much. I think people want comfort in the real, if you like real brands that they can be confident are going to be around for a while. There's a bunch of other things kind of going on. And Jeremy just touched on it there, where he's talking about what I've tended to call I'll call them accessible independents. Normally when people say independent watches, you think in terms of MBMF, 6-figure prices, blah, blah, blah. But I think there's a growing sort of constellation of accessible independent watchmakers. The Dawn Bluth I was talking about, that sort of thing. He's given examples like Fears, Manassi. I think that little cohort of people that were heavily into micro brands, a lot of those have moved up and are now looking at those kind of accessible independents.
Yeah, that's a great
I think
point.
that's the next big place.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'd like to get a Kyoto. I'd like to get an RGM at some point. Definitely get an RGM. I met with the founder of Roland Murphy, and when I was at the NAWCC and talked to him for a while. It's just I just would love to have that kind of bespoke, handcrafted watch at some point like that. That's accessible. To your point, you don't have to spend $20,000. You can get a $5,000 RGM. That's really, really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. So Nathan's saying, strangely, I've been pretty interested in the Seiko Astron. I'll just bring this up quick. I actually saw this in Japan. It looked awesome. Yeah, I saw one in person in Japan, and they look really cool. I quite like the look of these. So these are the GPS solar, where it's gets time setting from the GPS. So yeah, quite like that.
The Astron's one of those watches that sort of led me to say before, I think this idea of quartz being uncool is going away. You're seeing a lot of people like us that 3 years ago wouldn't have even mentioned an Astron. No one would have brought it up in the comments. But now someone brings it up in the comments and says, I'm thinking of buying it. And we all go, yeah, looks like a nice watch.
Yeah, and you know what else seems to be doing quite well is or you seem to be getting a lot more column inches is the Casio Oceanus, which you never used to hear about. Certainly in the West, you never, and in the UK, because it seemed to be a Japan only one. But you've seen a lot more people talking about these recently. And they've been doing their own limited editions. I think this Manta's a limited edition. So
so I think for a long time, Seiko, the only Seikos that anyone was interested in were Presages, Prospexes, and the occasional cheapies like the SKX or 5KX. But now I think Astron is coming into the market, and I think the same is going to happen with Casio. We're going to things like the Oceanus and the Edifice. I think Edifice is probably a brand to keep an eye on. I think that's going to be a brand people pay more attention to.
Well, they started to do some. Yeah, I think you're totally right, Pete. They started to do some interesting stuff with like carbon fiber and stuff, haven't they? Where's that carbon fiber? They had like an X watch which had like a carbon fiber. I mean, I reviewed that one that was like the Casio. Honestly, I think what holding Edifice back is the logo. I think the logo, their actual logo. I think they should just keep it as Casio and have like a highly stylized, have an embossed Casio logo. I honestly think the Edifice branding it's kind of sort of 90s boy racer type of thing. I associate, because the number one comment, I reviewed this watch on the channel, and this is incredible watch, but I think they should have just had a stylized Casio logo and just be done with it. I don't think the Edifice actually suits the integrated bracelet or the look and feel. So
yeah, I think a lot of, funnily enough, I think a lot of brands are messing with branding and trying to figure out how to do it. Seiko have been umming and ahhing about, is Prospex going to be a collection or is Prospex going to be a brand? They went through a phase where I thought, given the way they were talking, there was a chance pretty soon they were going to remove Seiko from the dial and they were just going to sell Prospex and Presage as like Swatch Group sells Mido and Certina. But they seem to have pulled back from that.
Yeah, I'm glad they didn't do that. The store, their main flagship store in Tokyo that we went to, I'm trying to find a picture now, but they had a huge Prospex sort of neon, not neon, but a sign that they'd made. It looked really cool.
I think in Japan they're actually pressing ahead. I think Prospex and Presage are more like brands within a group.
Yeah,
okay.
I think you might be right. So this their flagship sort of Seiko store in Tokyo, it had different levels. So there's actually an Astron level, but they had their own Presage logo, and I didn't realize how far it went back. It's an old range that they've had for a while. So
it's getting off Seiko. Let's just say that tomorrow they started selling Speedmaster Professionals that only had Speedmaster on the dial and didn't have Omega. Would anyone notice?
I would, but then I'm a speedy guy.
Yeah, the Omega kind of balances it out, doesn't it?
It's more like, for me, it's more like people don't. What you just said, Todd, is perfect. You're a speedy guy, not an Omega guy. Your desire to have a speedy has no influence on your desire to have a dive watch or your desire to have a Constellation. No one ever says, "Hey, congratulations! I just bought my first Omega," like they do with a Rolex.
Interesting point. Yeah, that's an interesting. Yeah, you're right. I mean, you could argue that the Omega dive watch range is its own sub element in terms of products, an Aquaterra versus a Seamaster versus a Planet Ocean, okay, is Omega trying to do something like that?
I don't think they're trying to. I don't think there's any intent in their marketing at all. I think they've found themselves there.
They got out of control. Speaking of websites that aren't really that great, I mean, I don't know. But if you have thousands of watches that you have versions of, I don't know how you do that on a website.
There's some silly things they do. Like, who decided that if I'm going to have if I'm going to have one watch, but with like 2 bracelet choices and a band choice, I'm going to call that 3 SKUs and have 3 images on a website. I mean, that's what Omega does. A sensible brand just says, "Here's my watch. This is the default band or bracelet," and there's a little box saying, "Pick the one you want."
Yeah. Like Christopher Ward does that, don't they?
I think everyone does that.
Yeah, that's good. That's
except
a good point.
Omega.
Yeah, I don't understand these things.
Yeah, that's really cool, actually. Well, that was a great show. We went a little bit over time, but
through an hour.
Yeah, actually, there's been a lot of requests for to do the Sunday show for a little bit longer, but like we'll talk about that another time. Perhaps on the next Sunday Social, I put a poll or get a vote to see whether we want to go a little bit longer. But anyway, awesome. Well, thank you so much for watching. Thank you to the panel, and we'll see you on Sunday for the Sunday Social. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.